Now, it's as your role as Transport Minister, I want to kick off this interview. I want to ask you about that bid by the Queensland Government with Virgin. Your colleague Peter Dutton says it's laughable. What do you think of it?
Well, I believe that it should be a market-led solution. I've said that the whole way through, Lisa. I've not swayed from that, and I still do think that it should be a market-led solution. Look, there are, as we read and as we hear, potentially 19 serious investors. Who knows who might come forward in the next 24 hours before preliminary bids close. We've got Nicholas Moore, of course, in there talking with the administrators. I know Paul Scurra, the CEO, and the board of Virgin want to see their airline up and running again. We all want to see two commercially viable airlines coming out of the back of COVID-19. The process is being followed. Let's see what happens from here.
But do you think it's acceptable for the Queensland Government to be part of a market-led solution?
Well, I think that they're a government, and I agree with Deb Frecklington. They should stick to trying to run Queensland and Queensland's economy. I think this should be left to companies. Should be left to potential bidders and investors who aren't necessarily government. I believe that there should be very much a market-led solution. Look, we want to see, of course, Virgin up and back in the air. I know how many letters I've received, and I've been writing back, hand-signing each and every one of them to the hundreds, if not thousands, of Virgin employees. They're concerned, of course, about their jobs, appreciating that they are based in Brisbane. We all want to see Virgin in the skies, domestically, regionally, and of course potentially internationally.
Yes, but here we have on the other hand Rex Airlines, which did get government help, federal government help, now expanding. You talk about two airlines after COVID-19. You might end up with three trying to battle for what could be a much smaller passenger list.
Well, indeed, we will. At the start, we will have a much smaller passenger list. That's a given. But as it builds back up and as regional tourism destinations open back up, we want to see people visiting those drought-stricken, bushfire-ravaged and now COVID-19 affected areas.
Because, but Rex is talking about going to capital cities.
Well, indeed, and good luck to Rex, and I wish them well with that. If we've got three commercially viable airlines flying domestic routes, so much the better.
Well, we want
to see competition, but we want to see aviation be its best self. That's why we've put $1.28 billion on the table, sector-wide assistance for Virgin, for Rex, for Qantas, for all of those airlines which do Australia's sky so proud.
Well, we had the head of the International Air Transport Association on the program a little bit earlier. He's saying nothing's going to be viable, certainly internationally, if you've got this 14-day quarantine in place. He said international travel just will not be able to restart.
Well, eventually that will lift. And of course, we'll take the advice of Chief Medical Officer Professor Brendan Murphy. He's done a sterling job so far. And the fact that Australia has been able to contain and minimise the case rate and indeed the death rate so very well compared to other countries, I think we'll take his advice. We've done very well so far. What we don't want to see is second outbreaks. What we don't want to see is a number of cases, as what happened 100 years ago. And history has a bad habit of repeating itself. 100 years ago when we had the Spanish flu, it was those second wave of attacks that killed so many. 12,000 Australians died in that. We've done so very well so far. We thank Australians for what they've done. Download that COVID Safe app and we'll all get through this together.
Can I turn to China now? We've seen it happen with beef and barley. There's concerns that it's going to happen with iron ore and LNG, this action from the Chinese government. Is this an attempt by China to silence its critics?
I think we need trade with China, $149.7 billion of trade. And when I talk to farmers, when I talk to barley growers, when I talk to beef processors and indeed cattlemen and people who raise stock, they want to make sure that we've got a viable trade with China. They want to make sure that we work through this process. Yes, it's difficult.
Is it a campaign to silence the critics?
Well, we want to make sure that we work with China, that we indeed have trade going forward with China. Our farmers, our resources industry relies on it.
Your constituency, the National Party's constituency, now seems to be paying the price of the tit-for-tat that's gone on in regards to coronavirus.
We'll work through it. We of course, and any inquiry that does occur on a global scale in relation to COVID-19 needs to happen. We know that. No one walks away from that, including China. But what we do want to see is continued trade, and whether that's with China, whether that's with any other market destination, we want to make sure that our produce, which is the best in the world, resources and indeed agriculture. I know how hard David Littleproud is working as the Agriculture Minister. I know how hard Trade Minister Simon Birmingham is working to make sure that we follow these processes, that we get our trade back where it needs to be. We produce enough food to feed 3 times Australia's population, and China is one of those areas where we need to continue to do that trade.
Mr McCormack, is the antics, perhaps you could call it, of John Barilaro in regards to Eden Monaro cruelled any ambitions that the National Party might have had in that seat now?
Well, we've never held the seat of Eden Monaro, and it's a federation seat. Yes, we will continue to see if we're through local branches. I've said all along, as the leader of the National Party, it is up to local branches as to whether they field a candidate, and I would never take away their autonomy. I'd never take away their rights to pick the person they want to represent them in that seat. Local branches always know best, and the National Party's been going for 100 years. We've done it well for 100 years. We've had some very good representatives in Parliament. I know John's working hard for regional New South Wales, and I wish him well in that endeavour. And Eden Monaro, the pressure's there on Anthony Albanese. They hold the seat. And no government has won a seat in a by-election in 150, there's only been one. It was back in 1920. It's the only one out of 158 since Federation. So the pressure is on Labor, and the pressure is on Anthony Albanese.
Michael McCormack, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Lisa. Anytime at all.